Content warning. This episode contains discussions about suicide. Listener discretion is advised. The content of this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional counseling, therapy, medical advice, or treatment. If you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts, please call or text the Suicide and Crisis Line at 988. Hello. Thanks for being here. This is the It's Later Than You Think podcast. I am your host, Patrick. Today's episode features a conversation about money, financial planning, estate planning, all that good stuff that we usually don't want to think about or talk about, yet it is important to have those conversations with the appropriate people in your life. And my guest today, Sasha from Dallas, Texas area, is going to speak to all of that good stuff. A brief note about the audio clarity for this interview. There was a bit of technical glitches in the recording process. I did my very best to remove them. However, you may notice a little bit of fuzziness, we'll say. With that said, the conversation I thought was very important for everyone to hear, and so I'm still going to release this episode as is. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get right into it. Here's my conversation with Sasha. I want to introduce my guest this week, Sasha, who is coming from the Dallas area. Welcome, Sasha.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm excited to be on today.
Yeah, this will be really fun, especially with some of the financial stuff we'll talk about. My parents are both recently retired within the last couple of years, so they've been kind of filling us in on their whole financial planning and how that all that works. So.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole hey, just in case. So it's been good though. Yeah, the first question I'd like to ask you is, what can you tell us about the importance of financial planning as well as estate planning?
Yeah,
the education side of it.
So let's start with financial planning, and then I'll transition into estate planning.
Great.
I'd say the importance of financial planning is no one is saving for you but you. And maybe that's a harsh thing to say, but at the end of the day, we're saving for our own retirement. So there was some research done a while ago about if you saw a picture of your older self, what kind of motivation that would help you save for retirement. And it actually does increase, just so you know. So if you have a face app and you want to change your face and see what your older self would look like, because realistically, we don't think of ourselves as being older. When we think about that person, they're foreign to us. So it's actually super fascinating research. But that's my first piece of thing. I guess the other piece of knowledge about in financial planning, I would say, is just start today. It doesn't matter what age you are, wherever you're at. Just make sure that you're putting those dollars in to save, and then that compound interest is really such a magical and powerful thing. So yeah, that's a.
Maybe this is just a guess on your end, or maybe you are very sure, but someone my age, in my early 40s, I'm not going to have Social Security.
Yeah, we joke that millennials won't have Social Security.
Is that really good? I get the outlook doesn't look great. Realistic, in 30 years, are they going to have something figured out, or is it just SOL on our end?
That's a great question. I would say that it will probably be there, but in some kind of diminished fashion. That's at least my prediction. Obviously, You can't take my word as gold.
Well, of course, yeah.
But I think if it wasn't there, people would be outraged. So it's going to be there, just it won't be as much as it is probably for people today.
Okay, well, I've helped out my parents, I guess, with that.
Yeah, I mean, we're still, like I said, we as millennials, I always joke with our friends, especially because a lot of my friends are financial planners. Like, obviously, that's the degree I have, and we just talk about these financial things all the time, and that's one of the things that we always talk about is it won't be there. It'll just be there in some capacity, but not like it is today.
Sure.
So, yeah. The other piece, I would say the important piece is about estate planning is like really just do it. Just get it done. Do it even when it makes you uncomfortable, because I have heard, here's the thing. I used to teach in education. I was in education, but it was
cool.
in more university based. So I worked for the University of Illinois Extension for many years. And instead of teaching at a university and teaching as a professor in a classroom, I would teach my community. So I got to teach a bunch of older adults most of the time. That was usually my crew, my crowd. But like, even just listening to them talk about, you know, like they're in their 70s or 80s and they still haven't done their estate planning. And that terrifies me. But, you know, like it just has to be done eventually. Like at the end of the day, like if you don't plan for it, like it will be planned for you. So
right.
That's like the scary part about it. But I think that estate planning is probably one of the most important pieces of the financial plan when it comes down to it.
Why do you think people are, I'll do it later, or they're just worried they don't want to think about it?
I think it's a lot of things. They don't want to think about it. I mean, like literally it's like death and taxes. Like we don't want to talk about those things. Yeah, that's cliche. But in reality, it's just a scary topic to think about your own morality, to think about like death and where that ends up and where you lead up and all the things. And then just thinking about like, okay, well, where will my assets go? Where will these pieces of my life end up being? So there's a really wonderful Drew Holcomb song that talks like about you can't take it with you when you're gone. So like I think that you have to just make the most of it and make those plans for other people, because if you don't, they will end up fighting. It's not like maybe like entirely, you know, it might not be like relationship ending fights, but it does happen. So just planning for it yourself is much easier. Yeah,
I believe it. Let's talk a little bit about empathy and how you have learned the importance of empathy throughout your life.
Yeah. So I will start out that most people really don't understand empathy, like in really what it is, and that there are different types of empathy. So we can talk about that in a moment. But first, I would say that the first time I really understood about empathy was actually, this is prior to, but I lost a good friend when I was 21. She had stage 4 colon cancer, and I was working in a life insurance agency at the time. And so she was 20 years old when she passed. And so for me, like understanding like how to navigate grief was very difficult. I had a boss at the time, and I was really struggling. This is the first real death in my life at 21. Yes, that sounds crazy, but just, you know, for most people, that doesn't happen till either you like have grandparents pass early and you're like a little kid, or like, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, I just needed a couple days. Like, I really just needed one day. I just needed one day to be at my house and cry. And I called her and I was like, hey, you know, like, I just need like a day. And she's like, well, you can just have the next 2 days off. And it was just such like a weird conversation to like, be like, oh, well, did I do something wrong? Because I asked for this grace of like, just let me have this day. So it's an interesting thing to kind of come out of. Yeah.
Now, you talked a little bit about different types of empathy.
Yes. I talk about that a lot, actually. It's kind of one of my cornerstones of who I am as a subject matter expert. There are 2 types of empathy. So there's emotional empathy, which is probably what most people think of when they think of empathy. Like, you're crying, I'm crying, we're all crying, like, or, you know, like, I really feel what you're feeling. Like, you're angry and I'm angry and we're going to go fight people, whatever it may be. Like, that's emotional empathy. And for most people, emotional empathy will burn them out. It's just a matter of fact. Whether it doesn't matter what field of work you're in, if you continue to use emotional empathy on that basis, you'll just end up being really burned out by the end of the day. So the other side of empathy is cognitive empathy. So Brene Brown calls this perspective taking. And I love that. Yes, I love Brene. If I ever get to meet her, I'll be so excited. But side note. But yeah, cognitive empathy is really about perspective taking. So it's about like, I can reach into something in myself and relate back to you and really understand. So I don't have to have that same experience to understand how important or the impact of it is. So that's one of the key differentiators. And when I talk about it with financial advisors, I'm like, you probably saw a client in the morning and, maybe they had a new baby and they brought the baby in and it's so exciting. And then, the next meeting you have is an angry client because the market's doing whatever it's doing and they're mad at you. Or, and then like later on you meet with your client who's now a widow and who's lost her spouse. Like that's a lot of emotions in just one day. So I think if we all could understand empathy in this cognitive sense of like, it's taking someone's perspective and like just sitting in it with them, it would make the world a lot better.
That's great. That's a really good point. In my role, we do touch on empathy quite a bit, just as far as and some of the leadership training that I do is, talking with new managers and just making sure they have that empathetic lens. Because it could be somewhat to some of your points, there's, having to be empathetic to a newer employee. Maybe they're younger, maybe they're in their Gen Z age or early, late millennial or early millennial, and they had trouble, their car broke down. The babysitter didn't show up, understanding that life happens. And so as long as they're obviously making a habit of it, but being empathetic that way. But also at the same time is, something happened at work and people were frustrated. As a manager, you have to wear those different hats, and
definitely
being empathetic towards your employees can go a long way. And that kind of dives into our effective communication conversations that we have. And Brene Brown's great. I like her a lot, and
I love her.
I play a lot of clips from Simon Sinek too. So
yes, I love Simon too. Yes,
he's great. They're
both on my list. Yes,
that'd be cool to meet them.
I would just love to meet them. Yeah. Brene is actually speaking to the American Library Association like in a couple of weeks. And I was like, oh man, I have a good friend who is a librarian. And I was like, dang, I wish I was a librarian today. So
that is really neat.
I do want to say that there's one thing, and I just want to say this is from research, but like when we as individuals, when we don't know how someone's feeling, we don't really know what their emotion is, we shy away because we don't think we're good at it. And I guess if any of your listeners take away today is like, just to say like, it doesn't matter. Like just be there with that person and just sit with them. I feel like we were going to talk about this, so I'm just going to bring it up now. Is that when my parents passed, so I had my parents die within 4 months of each other. So my dad passed. It's hard. But my dad passed from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I was in the room when he passed. So that was like a whole experience.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wild. Yeah, I remember. Sorry, I remember when he stopped. I was like so we're in the room. Okay, I'll give you the setting.
Yeah.
So we're in the room. It's in a room in my parents' house, and the hospice nurse is sitting on the other side of my dad, like closer to his head, and I'm sitting in a chair, kind of like I would say like midsection, like where his hips were. And my dad was a tall guy. He was like 6'3". And then my little sister was like sitting on the floor, so she couldn't actually see anything. And so she's a nurse and she's just like yapping away with the hospice nurse about like patients and things that they've seen in their careers. And all of a sudden, I just remember like looking at the hospice nurse and realizing like my dad had stopped breathing. And it was like 10 o'clock at night. So like, as like somebody who's very sick and they go to sleep, like it's a common thing for them to pass in their sleep. And I just remember being like, she just kept talking because she didn't see what was going on. She couldn't see him. And so like I tapped her head and I was like, hey, like this is going on. And then like the world stopped. It like slowed down. It was such a weird experience. I guess what I eventually am trying to get to is like, once my dad passed, there was just so many emotions. And then unfortunately, 4 months later, my mom passed. She took her own life. She died by suicide. So people didn't know how to talk to me. They didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to say things. They would say something like really inappropriate, like, oh man, I wish I'd called your mom one last time. And I'm like, but you didn't. So, like these things are just, it's so fascinating to me. to like watch other people like really struggle with empathy when like it's really not that hard. It's just sit with me. Just sit with me. That's all it is.
It kind of goes to the point of when couples are having conversation and someone wants to vent, and you have to have that understanding of, and you might have to ask sometimes, is this a time you want me to just listen, or do you want my advice? In your instance, don't give me these random things that are coming across your mind. I just need you to be here to sit.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Just to sit. Yeah.
Let me process this. And
it was just, it was just one of those experiences where you're like, the closer you are to somebody, like they call it, I read an article from Psychology Today during that time. It was like talking about like the layers of an onion, or like just like circles around somebody. It's like the closer you are to death, the more that they shouldn't be venting to you about that person's death, which is, okay. I got, like real riled up about it, because like, I'm such justice oriented. Like, I'm like, this isn't fair. Like, I don't want to hear about like your last phone call to my mom. Like, I'm grieving her death. Like, it was just such a dichotomy of like, because people don't know what to say, they just say, I think whatever.
It goes to them being a little uncomfortable, but they think that maybe, some comforting words here, when really, no, that's not what you needed, or people might need in that instance. And I think sometimes it's just, even I'm really sorry to hear that, and that what people can offer in those times is offering up an apology and something of, I can't imagine what that feels like, because that's something, especially if they haven't gone through it, that's where the whole empathy and sympathy thing kind of differs sometimes, where you can feel sorry for someone, and that sympathy is not necessarily not bad, and being empathetic I think is a strong trait to have.
I agree.
I remember just, this is something completely not on the same level, but a really good friend of mine years ago was a long-term relationship, and it was a breakup, and he struggled with it. It was just 5-6 years, and it's just got over. And I remember talking to him a little bit afterwards, and we became really close around this time because I had gone through something similar. I remember I told him, I said, I just can't imagine how you feel. And you're the first person that's told me that.
Yeah.
Everyone else has said, oh man, I know how you feel. And you don't, he goes, I appreciate you saying that, because yes, people in the whole world have gone through breakups and everything. He's like, but no one knows exactly how I feel right now, of where I am, my headspace is in this instance. So I appreciate you not trying to sugarcoat it.
That was a good moment for you to be a good friend and have empathy for him. I mean, that's the other thing about empathy, which is wild, is like, or death, I guess I should say, is like, you really find out who loves you and who cares about you, because when it gets too hard, people they split. And it was just such an interesting thing for me to watch, is like these very long-term friendships just became not there anymore, because I was just dealing with something so heavy. It's not just one loss, it's 2 losses, and it's the sale of their home. It's their estate, learning all of that, like going through it and just trying to process all the other pieces, and also still be a mom and a colleague and, a wife. And it's a lot. So I would just say,
it's a lot to juggle.
This is a lot to juggle, especially, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Like, I really wouldn't. It was some of the darkest times of my life, is just, to be quite honest with you, Patrick, just, it was dark. And I learned a lot about empathy during that time, because I wasn't feeling it from others. I was like, I don't understand why I'm not getting what I need from others. And I think I'm a highly sensitive person as well. It's a whole different story. But, just realizing like people can't meet me where they're not ready to meet me. So that was another learning lesson for me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can only meet you as far as they can go. And that's okay too. But just know your limits.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that point too, is just hits home, because in my line of work, we talk about trying to meet in the middle. We're on different sides of the spectrum, and trying to, in crucial conversations, navigating difficult conversations. You don't have to be on the island with me, but like, you got to at least try to come a little bit.
Get on the boat. Meet me in the boat.
Yeah. And consider the different points of view. I throw that phrase out there all the time. Keep an open mind.
Yes.
consider whatever others have gone through. You don't have to completely relate. You don't have to agree. But at the same time, is like for us to be respectful of humans to one another, that goes a long way.
Yes, it really does. I will say the one thing that I felt like not a stranger, but a colleague of mine, I remember posting on like LinkedIn one year about my mom, and it was like the very first time I had really done it. And he responded like, tell me something like that you really loved about your mom, or like was like something funny that she used to say. And I can tell you that as a person who's dealt with grief, they've been gone almost 8 years now, both of them. And there are just sometimes where like, I'm just like in a room and I'm just like, can someone just please say their name so like I can talk about them too? Like, let's just like all like let it out. And it would be, there were moments where I'm just like, let's just talk about my mom. Like, let's talk about her. Let's talk about my dad. Let's talk about their relationship, because they probably miss them too in some capacity. So, but we just are afraid of, we don't know what to say. And so we don't do it.
Yeah, it's a true point. Would you like to share a little bit about your experience advocating for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention?
Yeah. So obviously my mom died by suicide. So I remember writing her obituary and being like, I don't know what to do here. Like, so we grappled with like, do we let people know that she died by suicide? So at the very end of her obituary, we said like, if you'd like to donate in her memory, the best place for you to donate is to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So that was really like my first introduction to it, to be quite honest with you. Just learning about them and how they really work to help build capacity for others to understand what suicide is and how they can help people and prevent it. So that's probably one of the biggest things. That's how I learned about them. But the one thing I wanted to bring up about the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is that they do local and regional walks. So if you are somebody who's ever struggled with suicide or has lost a loved one, it's just like such a wonderful event to like go out and see other people who are just like you don't feel alone, like when you're in one of these moments. And that's what's so isolating about suicide, is that it does feel isolating. It does feel like you're the only one, like the world stopped turning, and like, at least for you, and it's still going for everyone else. So, we've done a lot of different walks. We've done walks in Chicagoland, which is on the lakefront. So if you ever get to do it, it's beautiful. We've done the DFW Metro Walk, and we've done North Texas. So it's just sometimes it's heartbreaking to see, because you'll be walking behind a family and realize like they lost someone like 3 months ago and they're here. Or you'll see, young children, or we have what we call honor beads. And so every bead is a different color. So I lost a parent, so mine is gold. But when you see red beads, which I think is the loss of a spouse, or white beads, which is the loss of a child, it just is so heartbreaking. But it's such a beautiful like time to like kind of sit back and say, you know what, I'm not alone. Like other people experience this, other people have experienced this in their families, and it's okay. So it's okay not to be okay, right? Is that what we normally say? Yes.
I think that suicide's extra scary in a way where there's lots of tragedy in the world, and whether it's diseases, you've got cancer and heart disease and everything, but when someone's going through that, you have that time to process. You have that time to where suicide can, and I guess most of the time, it's just going to come out of nowhere, or there weren't the signs for whatever reason. Or if they were so subtle, it was almost in hindsight. So
Definitely.
Really good point to make though, where you do go to those events and you see that, okay, I am not alone in this. There are others that have experienced what I have in their own way.
Yeah.
Just to help you put one foot in front of the other and realize like, okay, life's moving on and I need to
keep going. Gotta keep breathing. Yeah. There's actually like really scary statistics about, you probably might put a trigger warning on this podcast episode. But,
yeah, I might.
But that, when a suicide happens in a family, it actually can create a ripple effect that other people in the family believe that it's their way out as well. So you might have like a parent pass. And then, you have this ripple effect of somebody else in the family thinking that they want to die by suicide as well. So I would just tell people, like, just ask. If you're afraid, just ask them. Just ask them outright. I wish I had asked my mom. My last text message to her was, I just want you to be okay. And I just want you to get the help that you need. And I should have just outright asked her. And I say this to everyone now, just ask them if they want to die. Because if you don't know, they're probably going to tell you, because ultimately they don't want to take their lives. At least that's from my perspective. Let me speak for myself. Yeah. My mom really struggled with it, and maybe that was what she wanted to do. And, I think that she was like saying all the things like, oh, I'm really, I'm really tired. I don't want to keep doing this. But like, that's just like a way around of saying like, I'm tired of living. I don't want, but not actually saying it. So there's actually like a really wonderful book about, I think Kurt Cobain's aunt wrote it. And so it's about like dying to be free, I think is what it's called. And that was one of the very first books I read, and just reading like, like how that pain from them transfers from them to the family. Like think of it like a big bowl of like a goldfish bowl. Mm-hmm. And every time something happens to that person, they just put another rock in, and just keeps getting heavier and heavier and heavier until they can't hold it anymore. So then it breaks. And then you, as the family, are left to pick up the rocks and the pieces of their life. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say ultimately is, just ask. If you're afraid of losing somebody, just ask them. Just outright ask them. Again, it kind of goes back to empathy, actually, like just sitting with them and being in their perspective. Maybe you have never experienced a suicidal ideation, and that's wonderful. And I love that for you. But a lot of others, we've experienced those feelings, but that doesn't mean we've taken the steps to make a plan. So it's like, we're getting really dark. I'm so sorry.
Do you think a question such as, do you want to take your own life? That's very impactful, and it's going to get an answer that at least it's going to help you understand more. But something about like, oh, is everything okay? Doesn't do a whole lot for that person, because they're going to just say, I'm fine, or yeah, I'm okay. They don't want you to worry.
Yeah. There's the biggest warning sign. There are lots of warning signs, but some of the bigger warning signs are like if they're giving their belongings away or assets away.
Oh, okay.
Another one is, and this is a big one, and I've heard this just anecdotally, so just know and take it with a grain of salt,
Sure.
is that when people have a plan, they actually get really happy. So you think like, oh, they have decided like, they want to live, like, but really they just have a plan, and they feel happy about it. Like they're ready for that pain to end. And so I would say like, if you know somebody who is suicidal and then all of a sudden they get happy, please ask them immediately, because that's a danger zone to me.
Interesting.
Because they've decided. So it's really scary. But at the end of the day, like having some bravery to ask the hard questions, even though they make you uncomfortable, you can save someone's life. And that's what's important. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for providing that info.
Course.
Those are definitely some good tips for sure.
Lots of good tips. Lots of trigger warnings though. So
yes, I will.
So sorry.
I'll put that. No apology needed. This is important to talk about, and
it is,
especially with the way the world's going, where there's not all the resources that there used to be within the last month or so. So it's important to make sure that's.
But that's why I became I loved learning about empathy and estate planning, because I just had such like really awful experiences, to be quite honest. Just
back to back. Yeah.
Like losing my dad. I remember sitting with him in the kitchen, and I have a degree in financial planning, and so does my husband. So I remember waking up one morning and he's sitting across from me at the table, and I just like outright asked him, I was like, hey, is everything done? Like in your estate? Is the estate plan done? Are the documents done? And he looked at me and he said, yes. And I wish I had dug more, because I just believe it's my dad, right? Like I believe my dad. But I wish like my spouse had asked, or somebody else would have asked him, because come to find out it wasn't. He had created a trust and he didn't put anything in the trust. And so all these assets are like outside of it. And then ironically, which is, I guess, a blessing, my mom like did almost everything right. We did have to do like a small probate estate for her, but like she titled everything. She lived in Missouri. So like you can transfer a lot of items on death. So she transferred the house on death, and she transferred the car on death, and transferred the bank accounts on death. So like these things are like, they're helpful to have, and they were helpful to us, but it was just such a weird, it's almost like everything in my life has always been like two ways. Like my dad died slowly. I got to say goodbye. I got to do all these things, where my mom, I mean, it was immediate, instant. She was just gone. So like, that's how my life has been. It's just this life of things like that. So yeah.
Let's talk about cats.
Yes. Let's talk about cats.
Now, I'm very intrigued about this because I don't know a lot of cat people. My whole family are dog people. Now, we had a cat growing up, but it was among other dogs. And that I will, if my sister decides to listen to this episode. The cat we had was named Louie. And Louie came to us when my one sister is a few years older than I am, and my sister was in high school at the time. And a friend of hers shows up on our doorstep, I want to say like a week before Christmas. It was around the holidays. Drops off this cat, and my parents, what just happened? Knowing my sister at some point was going to be moving out after high school, and sure enough, she didn't take the cat with her. That just became the family cat. And my dad and my mom took care of that cat. Lived a long life, but it was just funny because that was how we ended up getting a cat. We just had, otherwise we
somebody
just had dogs.
Somebody drop it off at your house?
Yeah.
I call that the cat distribution system. Have you seen that on social media? Like, like they'll be like, oh, I went for a jog and I found a cat. And I'm like, when is that going to happen to me? Like, I'm just waiting. But yeah, I've always been a cat person. So my parents had dogs when I was little, and my mom took me to an event at a Walmart. They were having an adoption event, and I walked by this big old tabby cat, and I was like, that's a Tigger. So Tigger came home with us that day. He got out, I think, like one time, and he like clipped his ear, but I've been a cat person since I was 3 years old. So a long time, 35 years now of, being almost a cat person, but love cats. We have, just so you know, Patrick, I have 8 cats. This is like a thing that we discreetly share with other people, because there was like 8. Like, why do you have 8? Why so many? And I'm like, I don't know. We just like cats. Like,
they just keep showing up.
Well, we fostered a lot. So that's kind of like,
as you mentioned. Yep.
Yes. So always been a cat person, always had cats. Had 2 cats when I was in college. Loved them. Obviously got married. We went from 2 cats to 3 cats. And our first foster fail, her name was Skittles. She was a calico cat. She had 1 green eye and 1 blue eye. And I think that's why her name was Skittles. But she was 6 years old when we fostered her. So the shelter we were fostering her from was like doing a renovation. And so we were like, of course we'll help. Like, of course, like while you're renovating your space, we, like all these people came to like help the shelter out and foster cats. And so we lived in a little bit further out than the shelter. The shelter was in my husband's hometown, and we lived probably like 50 miles away. And so they're like, just take an older cat, like just keep her, like, if we have adoption events, eventually you can bring her back. No, I fell in love with that cat. She was my heart and soul. I remember we renamed her Ellie. And so we had a Bella, a Lottie, and Ellie. And I was like, we have a BLE sandwich. And it was just, she was our very first foster, but she's also our first foster fail. And she kind of really started it all. She unfortunately she had diabetes complication. Yeah. She was 10 and she just kept losing weight. We couldn't figure it out, but I don't know. Cats are they're like people. It's the best way to describe it. Like, there's cats who like love people. Jackson Galaxy calls those mojito cats. They're like, come in, have a mojito. Like, let's talk. And I have like a few of those. And then I have the cats who are like, I don't even like you. Like, I don't know why I live here. I just live here because it's safer. Like, those cats. And then you have, some in between, some who are a little scared, some who are, happy to be just with you, but not like strangers or people they don't know. So Yeah, cats, they're the best. I love them.
You've probably heard this before, but the cats that I've known, at least throughout my life, just friends had cats or family members, I always felt they were like plotting. Like, I don't know if I trust you. Like the one cat I actually really enjoyed was my cousins. They're second cousins of mine. They have a condo downtown Milwaukee, and this cat has since passed away a few years ago. But I would cat sit for them when I lived downtown. Before I was about to come back downtown, but I hadn't had my dog yet, and they asked me if I wanted to cat sit at their place for the weekend. They go away for a few nights, and yeah, I love downtown. I'd be happy to watch the cat. And this cat lived to be 20.
Dang, that's impressive.
The thing was jumping on the counters. Like, I don't know where these ups were, just like the hops were amazing. But the first night I stayed there, they had a 2-bedroom condo, and they said, so you're welcome to stay in the guest room. It's up to you if you want to leave the door open. Most likely the cat was named Hershey. Hershey was great. But Hershey normally will sleep on our bed when we're gone. So, okay, no problem. I'll just leave the door open. I don't care.
Yeah.
The first night I stayed there, I was woken up at like probably 2 a.m. A smack in the face. I
what?
And this cat was looking at me like, hey, you're in my domain. Like, kind of
that's wild.
Never did it again. And the cat was not mean to me at all. It was just a kind of a, like,
it was like, hey, wake up. I want to hang out.
Yeah. Oh, my thought was like, hey, just a heads up, like, I live here. But it was very high maintenance. Like, if you didn't change the litter box within like 20 minutes or 10 minutes after it had used it, it was like, I'm just going to keep spraying, it's great. Yeah. It was like, okay, so I guess I'll clean it up pretty quickly.
Yeah, we have a few of those. We call those diggers.
Yeah.
They just dig the litter. It sounds like Hershey was just like, hey, I just want to let you know, this is my house.
Yeah.
You are here. And
do you know where the cats are at all times, or are they hiding? And because cats, I feel sometimes are like, yeah, I want to be kind of off on my own, or like my dog, I always know because she's just by me all the time. But
yeah, I would say I know at least normally where 5 of the 8 are at all times. I would say, like we have some older cats and they are usually with me in my office.
Yeah.
I'm kind of notorious for like, if I'm on a webinar in my office, like there's going to be at least one cat sighting. Like,
yeah, that's awesome.
It's just going to happen. And then everyone goes, what's the cat's name? And I'm like, Oh man, I'm like, it's this one. Like, I don't know. So, but that's what I would say. It's like, I know most of them are, but they all have collars. If I need to find them, but we did have, when we first moved in, we had a few scares, especially we had our bathroom renovated and the workers accidentally let my big cat out. His name is Titus and he's like big and fluffy. And as we were talking earlier before we started recording, like it got really hot my first summer here in Dallas. It was like 105, 106. And so we could not find him anywhere. And I'm like, he's dead. He's dead. He's outside dead because like, when you have trauma, you go to worst case scenario.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my gosh. So we actually there's a lot of cat communities who are like, if you're losing your cat, this is what you should do. Here's like the 5 things you should do. So I put my dirty clothes out so he could like smell me.
Yeah.
And then we put a camera and then we put some food and water. Oh. And then we just waited. And within like 30 minutes of us doing that, he came home. And I was like,
oh wow.
I remember he was so hot. He was like panting. He was just like laying on like the tile being like, I'm dying. I was like, here's some ice. Like, we'll put some ice packs on you. But yeah, cats, they're wonderful. But they're like people. They have their quirks. They have their things. They like you or they don't like, but they always seem to find the people who are like either A, allergic or B, don't like you. And they're like, no, I'm going to make you love me. That's how cats work. So yeah.
Let's talk about, speaking of podcasts. Okay. And again, thank you for joining mine, but you mentioned that you also have a podcast.
I do. I do have a podcast.
Share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I'm going to say a disclaimer first, and I'm going to read it verbatim because I just don't want to get in trouble.
Fair enough.
But the views expressed are my own and do not reflect those of my employer. Okay. So there we go. So I'm on a podcast. I have a co-host, and the two of us interview financial advisors. We call it The Heart of Advice, and it's presented by eMoney. And we basically just have these advisors on, and we get to learn about like what makes their sauce special, like what makes them different from all the other advisors out there. And it's been really fun. It's been fun to like learn more about the industry. I come from like a different lens. I am a financial counselor by background, and I guess by trade, I guess if you want to call it that way.
Yeah.
But listening to these professionals who've been, in the business for, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, longer, 20, 25, just listen to them, how they grew their business and evolved. It's been really fun to learn about them, and then also have the viewpoint of my co-host, who is a certified financial planner. So I look at this from a lens of like heart, and let's talk about empathy, and let's talk about emotional intelligence, and how do you keep your clients engaged, especially when they're not. And then my colleague can say, you know what, hey, here's from a practice management side, like, how do we like have more efficiencies in the business, and what technologies do you use, and like how do you have really great, wonderful, and loyal employees. So it's really fun. So that's
great, and that can be found on most platforms.
On Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, as we say. Yeah. But I would say on the other side, like if you're a consumer and you want to listen to it, if you're looking for an advisor, especially if you're looking for like a niche advisor who does like stock options only, or maybe they do ESG investing. So like they're more looking at the environmental pieces of the investing. Like those advisors are out there, and we've had like the privilege to get to learn about those advisors, and then they can kind of tell more about how they do their business. So it's kind of nice.
And your guests, are they nationwide?
Yes, they're definitely nationwide. Yeah. We are a remote first company, which is really lovely and awesome, because I used to live in Illinois when I first started, and now I live in Texas. Yeah. Yes, definitely. As I told you earlier, my in-laws are just north of Milwaukee. So, and my father-in-law actually teaches at the Milwaukee School of Engineering. So,
he's. I've probably seen him before. I live right over that way.
Yeah, he's got an electric car. So if you've ever seen, I don't know, an electric car in the same spot, that's probably him. So that's actually a small world.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I'm literally like a block away. No.
Well, I was actually thinking about this before we started. I was like, what can I tell him I know about Milwaukee? I was like, I know about cops. Like I know about like, the custard. And I was like, it probably feels like, that's where everyone goes. And I'm like, well, but that's where I've been. So I don't know. So.
It's a good spot. Yeah.
It is. It's very tasty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, I have really enjoyed this conversation.
Yes. Very enlightening. I appreciate you taking the time.
Of course.
As well. So is there anything that you'd like to share? Any plugs you'd like to give?
Yeah. Well, obviously for our podcast, The Heart of Advice podcast, again, you can find it anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. And then I have like an upcoming project that I'm really excited about. I have been working with a colleague on a grant from the Foundation for Financial Planning, and we're going to be releasing a curriculum for pro bono financial planning. So the goal is for universities who have financial planning programs to kind of implement it, and then hopefully sow the seeds of pro bono to other schools and universities. So looking forward to that.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Really good opportunity. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Patrick, for having me on.
Of course. Sasha, I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Yep. You too.
All right. Thanks a lot. Yep.
Thank you again to Sasha for coming on the pod. Always appreciate getting to meet someone new and have some very valuable conversation. If you have not considered taking care of that financial situation of yours, future estate planning, any of that, I'm going to suggest that you consider doing so. Thanks for tuning in. If you have not already, feel free to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends. We'll see you next time.